So today let us come across some AWS services which we all frequently used while deploying the microservices or the web applications. Okay, so this is my this session's agenda. So today we'll want to understand all these services. Very few are here, but not the all AWS services. So why do we require and what is the benefit of using those things and all? We'll see in the future slides. So first and foremost thing is Amazon EC2. So what exactly the EC2? As the name says, Elastic Compute Cloud. Actually, it's a cloud compute. So it's an Elastic Cloud Compute, right? So what exactly it is? So EC2 provides a scalable virtual servers in the cloud. So allowing you to run applications and manage workloads. So what exactly they are saying is, so we all do have laptops or the PCs or any physical form of computers. I can say that. So instead of owning the all physical things, so having the multiple. So for example, so let us understand that in olden days, so if I want to deploy some web applications, so I need to have a very large infrastructure. So just to deploy and maintain and keep tracking of those things. So we used to have a very huge hardware components, which will be more cost. So assume that we come across Snapdeals and EasyPay, many kinds of e-commerce platform, right? So assume that if they have one physical infrastructure on their sites and they have invested around 2.5 billions or 3 billions just to develop the infrastructure to deploy their platform or the e-commerce websites to internet. So the cost is more. As of now, today, we won't be seeing those companies in the internet, right? So, most of the people are towards into Flipkart, Amazon's, Intra, and so, and very few e-commerce platform. So, the that is the Snapdeal got closed recently due to some merging, or right. So, whatever the investment amount they have made on the infrastructure to deploy their applications, so it's completely been lost. So even they cannot resell it, even though if they are trying to sell it, it will go for very minimal cost, and there might be some crash errors. So the maintaining the infrastructure and the availability of infrastructure, everything was more cost. So comparatively, so to overcome those things, what the cloud service providers does is they have all in that is in AWS, Azure, GCP. They have their own virtual machine. So when it comes to Amazon, they have a concept of EC2, that is Elastic Cloud Compute. So what exactly is means? So here this service will provide us to create a server, so without any hardware components purchasing. So if I want to have 2 TB of that is yeah, so 2 TB of system configuration of Windows if I want. So I can directly log on to my AWS account and I choose the EC2 as a service, and there I go and config. So if thereafter, so if I don't want that much of 2 TB of storage, so I wanted to load on, I can make out. So if I want to scale up my RAM or the CPU or the cache, everything. So it's completely flexible thing, right? So if I want more, I can scale up. I can scale it up my infrastructure. If I don't want, I can minimize that infrastructure. So without having any physical components, we gonna launch or the take the systems, right? So what is the benefit? So what are the benefits of using the services from the Amazon, that is AC2? So one is scalability, as I just mentioned. So we can scale up or scale down based on our usage, and the price is also flexible. So based on what we use, we will be paying them. So if you are not using the resources, we won't be paying any amount to the Amazon. And the control. So as I just previously mentioned, so we have a complete control. So we can change the instance configuration. So instance is nothing but your RAM, CPU, cache, everything. Okay, so as I just mentioned, so including CPU, memory, storage, networking. So complete, we will be having the control. So if I want to scale all each and every individual things, I can go on. So like that. Okay. So we'll try to see visually in AWS console. So this is my AWS console, and that is my account. So either you can search the services by here, or you can select it by here also, right? So here we have a concept of compute, right? In that, so we have a different servers or the computer options virtual. So in that we will be choosing EC2. So go there for instance, and just hit launch instance, right? So you will be naming your computer virtual computer, in other words I can say that, and you will be choosing so what configuration or what OS you want. If you want Linux, you can go for Linux. If you want Mac, you can go for Mac. You can, if you want Ubuntu, you can go for Ubuntu. If you want Windows, you can go for Windows. And there are many operating systems are available here, right? So in one click we have these many operating systems are available, and based on that we'll be get charged for it. Okay, so based on what operating system we are taking and for how long we will be using, right? Okay, so this is the advantage. So if not, like so if we do not have any concept of cloud, providers like AWS, Azure, or GCP, so what we would have to do, so I need to purchase a separate system with the required components of minimum of 120 GB of storage and 8 GB of RAM, and the processor of i7, like that, right? So to deploy our applications or to develop the applications, on that case I need, for if I want to have the Linux system, so I need to purchase that independently. If I want to have a Mac, I want to purchase independently. So what was here, the cost will be of more, right? So the investment what we going to have is more. So assume that later for more than an year, so I don't want to have my Linux system, so completely I will switch everything to my Mac, right? On that time, whatever the amount I have invested on the Linux system is kind of a loss. So I won't be using it, I will keep idle. If I want to resell it, the whatever the amount I have invested on that, I won't get it back. And if I want to scale up, that is initially I have a 1 TB, so I wanted to have more, that is 3 TB or 4 TB of storage with 64 GB of RAM, and its CPUs, like if I want. So definitely again I have to invest on the infrastructure, right? But when it comes to cloud thing, so completely it's flexible and scalable. So it's completely customizable, I can say, in other words. So we can easily um, cook your own systems. So first initially we're gonna choose the operating system what we want, and even we have a different versions here. So based on what version we want, we can choose here, right? And the architecture, so it's completely same like your physical medium, but here we will be using the resources. The Amazon owns the physical infrastructure, but not the people who are using the Amazon services. Okay, and here we have a instance type, that is whatever the resource we will be using. So we can see here, so T3 dot micro, that is we have a 2 CPU, 1 GB of RAM, and on demand. So they will be charging this amount for an hour. So it's comparatively low, right? Investing on the huge infrastructure, it's lower. And obviously we will be setting up the login credential, right? Likewise, we have a security key. So if we do not have any security key, we won't be able to access to that system. So for security reasons, they have made this one. And the network configuration. So for physical infrastructure, I need to purchase the new network from the ISP, that is Internet Service Provider, and I need to configure my system. I need to connect my system to the internet. Everything I need to do, right? So if I want to have my own private network, I need to purchase that, and I need to set up the VPN. Everything should be done. So, but here everything will be virtual and taken care by the Amazon, so wirelessly. So here they have already taken the virtual network. Under that, they have made some subnets to store each and individual department independently, so without any mixing or doing those things. And also we do have a firewalls, so we can restrict the network that is accessing the resource, whatever the resource you want in your server or the system, to the end user. So only the authorized person can, we can make that restriction. Okay, so using the firewall, so which provides a more security. Okay, and when it comes to configuring the storage, so I can go up to maximum how I want. So in free trial, I can take up to 30 GB, but pay as you go means you can go up to wherever you want. So based on your requirement, and the GCP, that is the storage class, or the, we do have that DDR4 RAM, like sorry, SSD, HD, like that we have here. So how fast I wanted to, so like that. So once you have configured all your requirements of your system or the server, you can just keep launch. Okay. So you will be seeing the instances or the system which are created like these. Okay. So just to show you people, um, so now the system is ready to be used. Okay, so just I'll hit connect. So in case of physical medium, you need to start your server or the system. When it comes to virtual thing, we will be have everything the UI UX based. Okay, so whenever you start your machines, for example, if you have if you want the Linux system means, obviously when your operating system loads to hardware components, the first and the foremost pop-up will be of this. But here I'm using the command line interface. For that purpose, I'm getting like this. If I want to use the UI based, obviously we can use that. So this is how just we saw that how we can avoid purchasing the physical infrastructure of the system. But we were speaking something about scalability, right? So if I want to have more storage in futures, like those things, right? So as we can see here, elastic block storage, under that we have a topic called volumes. Okay, so here I can create another volume, same. So the volume, how much GB you want, and what kind of the hardware you wanted to use, and what is the speed of the data transmission, everything. So I will set up, and I need to just create volume, so it will create. So since it's a free account, so I cannot able to show you, so it will be get charged. So when I hit that create volume, so likewise the column we can see, right? Like same thing we'll be able to see. Thereafter we can select in action, we can modify volume, we can detach the volume from your system or the server, or we can attach the volume. So if you attach the volume to the desired server, so if you want to attach to some, and that is existing server which is running, so you can attach it by how many GB you want. Okay, so that is one thing. And if you want to scale up your that is instance type, right? So in action, so select the system you wanted to upgrade yourself. Okay, so select that, and in action we have a settings called instance settings. There we have a change instance type. So right now we have T3 micron, and the configuration is as follows. Just if I wanted to change to some things, okay. So on demand Linux print, that is per hour how much they are going to charge. So T3 micron, if I am using this much of amount per hour, then if I am using C6I metal, means this much of amount they will be going to charge. Okay, so for Linux and for Windows, for both they are showing here. Okay, and here we have only two CPU, that is one core. We have 128 CPUs with 64 core. It's more powerful system. And here we have only 1 GB of RAM. Here we have around 2 TB of RAM, right? It's more thing. So and the network, we can transfer up to 5 GB of data with a good performance. But here we have 50 gigabytes of data, right? So this is how, and we can just change based on our requirement. So we can also scale up and we can also scale down. So both storage as well as memory, right? So this is all about the EC2. And so to deploy our application or the, yes, to deploy our application, we want the server or the infrastructure. So we want to store some data, right? So while interacting with the customer, if we want to display our products to end customer, and we want to maintain the customer's details, we should have some database to store all the data, right? So in Amazon, that is in AWS, they have offered some database options to have instead of buying the physical database servers. Okay, so that is one we have is RDS, that is relational database server. So what it is means, it manages relation database servers that suppose multiple database engine. So some companies use MySQL as their database engine, some SQL, some companies use PostgreSQL, some use Oracle, some use SQL Server. So based on their requirement and their security, they move on. So same thing we have it here. So just we saw uh, the system or the server. Now we are moving into the storage server. Okay. So here I go for database, and currently I do not have any database created as of now. So let's see the procedure. Okay, so I'll be going with the standard creation because I wanted to do some customized things. So assume that if I wanted to make use of MySQL server and the additions, whatever the version you want, you can choose, and the templates we have. So if you're using for the production purpose, the amount, the cost will be obviously the high. So since the availability and the performance, everything will be high here. So I don't want that. Just for the to showcase you people, I'll be choosing the fruit tile. And when we choose the free tile, we cannot able to store the data in multiple zones. We are not allowed to store, since it's a free trial. We are not paying anything to the AWS, right? So in production case, we have multiple availability zone. DB cluster is nothing but database cluster. So same data, so if you have logged in or if you have signed up, so your data will be replicated in two or more region in that zone. Okay, so why it is do? So why does it necessarily require? As it's obviously required that. So due to some natural calamities or the voltage of so anything might happen. So AWS might get crashed of their server. So on that case, whatever the data we have stored in that server get vanished and it cannot be backed. So for that purpose, for the safety purpose and the for reliable service, what they do means whatever the content you're going to share or store in one server, the same data will be kept backup in the another server which is far away from the primary server. That is one region will have minimum of three zones, can have multiple of n zones like that. And so whatever the name or the identification you wanted to give your database of. So for example, if you are using or if you are creating your database for Flipkart, means you can name it as Flipkart or you can name it as Amazon, anything. So we should have some login credential, right? Or else the people from outside can, if they have cracked the network security, they can able to gain the access to the database and all the data will be breached out. So there won't be any integrity or the security from this company, right? To maintain that, we'll be providing the master username as the master password. So only the authorized person can able to manage that. Okay. Next is instance configuration. So as we previously saw that we have an instance type, right? That is how many CPU, how many network speed or the data speed and all those things. Likewise, same here also we do have, since it is also a kind of a system. So here we have a 2 CPU, 1 GB of RAM, network up to 2 GB. So we can transfer data and the storage. So obviously we will be using storage class here, right? To store our data. So how much of GB we can have. See here, they are mentioned. So the minimum is 20 GB, maximum is 6 terabyte. Probably it could be for a free thing. So if we are moving on to production, yeah, in production we will have 65.36 GB. So allocated storage value must be minimum of 100 GB to we can have this much, right? For development and testing we'll have a different one, and for retire we'll have this much. Okay, so we saw instance storage and the connectivity. So in another window we have our virtual system. In another window we have a that is storage server. So if I want to make connection, right, to store whatever the data we are passing through that server, it should be stored in this particular server, right? So we need to link that server and we need to have a security configuration to make that is whatever the data coming from this port, it should store in this storage like that. So those will be configured here. Okay, and if you want your database to be accessed publicly or privately, we can make it here, and we can use the proxy things. Why do we require managed highly available database proxy that improves application scalability, resilience, and security? So if you are using proxy means the real identity will be hidden to the end users. Okay, so if you want, we can set up the password authentication. So as we have previously set the password, right? Or we can use password and IAM database authentication. We have different tools for authenticating the logins. And here in additional configuration, so we will be providing the database name here. Okay, and if you want, you can keep backup of your snapshot of your database configuration. So in case of loss, so the same configuration can be replicated and deployed within the fraction of minutes. And how frequently your data should be kept back up. So even we can mention there, we can say mention the cycle between number 1 to 35, which automates the backup and keep the data. Okay, so we can do everything in encryption and decryption. So everything here. Okay, instead of writing and installing the additional softwares, so we have ready to use things. Only we need to choose based on our requirements. So this is all about the RDS concept. And we'll see this. So what is the use of using that? So managed service automates routine database tasks like backup, patching, and scaling. So as I just mentioned in there, right? And the high availability. So multiple availability zone deployment for failover supports and enhanced durability. And also we have a performance provisions for high performance of workload too. So likewise, we do have that is this all will be used based on the MySQL queries, right? So I don't want to use MySQL queries. I wanted to be my database to is simple to create and use it. So on that base, we'll be using the NoSQL database. That is the service provided by the Amazon is DynamoDB, a fully managed NoSQL database service that provides the fast and predictable performance with the seamless scalability. So same feature we have, but here we gonna create the database using the MySQL queries. But here we won't be creating or we won't be using any MySQL queries. We just gonna use the UI based thing, and based on that we will be creating this. So what it is, a fully managed NoSQL database service that provides fast and predictable performance with seamless scalability. Like, so why using low latency? Designed for application requiring rapid data access. So if you want to access your data rapidly and how frequently, we'll be using the Dynamo service. And scalability same, and integrity. So easy integrity with other AWS services including Lambda for serverless application. So what they are telling is, so we can integrate so as I just mentioned while explaining the RDS, right? So we have to integrate to our web application servers, right? So on what trigger the data should store and on what trigger data should be retrieved to that person's, right? Likewise, we can link these services within the AWS. We'll see that. So directly, so this is the dashboard of your DynamoDB thing. So there we can able to create table from here also, or from here also we can able to create. So we will be naming the table name. So first we need to have, yeah. So directly we're gonna create the table here. So we'll provide the table name and the partition key, that is the primary key, and short key if you want to use that is foreign key, you can default here. And we will have the instance, right? Read capacity, that is 5 cu, that is writing capacity per seconds, like that, owned by and managed by these things. So the same, the UI based um, data creation like your Excel, it will appears on creating it. Okay, so thereafter we'll come into another kind of the system or the virtual machine, that is Lambda. So what it is, a serverless computer service. So I just mentioned system, right? So here we won't be creating any server as we created for EC2. So everything is already been ready. So a serverless compute service that runs your code in response to events. so in response to events without needing to provisioning or managing the server. So here we won't be taking any focus on creating the infrastructure. Okay, so we just go to Lambda service. We'll have, that is we gonna add or embed our microservices or the API. We're going to load. So on what platform we used to run. So if I want to deploy it on Java or .NET or Python, so I'll be choosing only that one, and we're going to put my code into that Lambda server. So the rest will be taken care by Lambda. So storage, instance, network, everything will be taken care by the Lambda itself. So we'll see that. So event driven. So ideal for the application that responds to events such as uploads or the API call. So on click, so that is on login. If we click on the login, so that is some event is happening, right? We will be clicking that event. So on click that, the Lambda will going to run. So to click, we should have some path or the address, right? So from where it should travel. So for that one, we will be using the API gateway. We'll see that in future. And here the cost is quite less comparative to your EC2. So in EC2, if your system is running, you will be getting charged for it. Even if you are using it or not, that doesn't mean it. The if the status is shows that it is running means you will be getting charged for the hourly basis. But when it comes to Lambda, you gonna pay only when the event is happened. If not, it's not, you won't be get charged. So that is what they are saying, only pay for the compute time consumed. So that is whatever the calculation. For example, I want to calculate if I am using the calculator, that is I want to add some numbers, two numbers, that is a plus b, that is 10 plus 20 equals to 30. So I will hit equals button or the enter button to get the sum of two numbers. Only on that process I will get charged for how many seconds the computation will going to run. Apart from that, if there is no activity is running on your Lambda server, you won't be get any charges. And automatic scaling. So here I don't want to involve in scaling the infrastructure. So automatically based on the events or the request coming from the end users or the API, the Lambda server will take care of it. That is automatically scaling based on the number of incoming requests. Okay. So next, as I just previously mentioned, that is Amazon API Gateway. So we're going to see all those things in there. So what is it? A fully managed service for creating, publishing, maintaining, and securing the APIs at any scale. So we have a code in AWS Lambda, and how do you access it publicly? So we should have some path, right? The URL kind of thing. So those will be taken care by API Gateway. So we gonna create the path to our services inside my source code. So how we will be having the that is architecture or the design. So on click, this event should be done, or this function should be called, or this class should be executed, right? So we should have some path. So whenever we hit any event, right? So that is what the API gateway will be going to do. A fully managed service for creating, publishing, maintaining, and securing the API at any scale. Easy integration. So integrate seamlessly with AWS Lambda and other AWS services, and cost effective. So same as API Lambda itself. So pay only for the API calls. So whenever you hit a login button on that particular time, for how long the event is going to happen, for that purpose we will be going to pay the amount. So with no upfront cost, and the security built-in support for authentication and throttling and monitoring. So all these support or the security criteria will be taken care by the Amazon, but not from the client end. Okay, so see here, so just just two people show you. So if I want to run Node.js, um, without having the lambda means, so I need to have some system, I need to have the application like a Visual Studio or editors, I can say that I need to install the dependencies, I need to have that is storage, RAM, everything, right, to run only this code only. But when I am using the lambda, I don't require to have the storage, everything, whatever just I explained. Just I will put my code here and I will select the that is technology what I am using. If I am using .NET, Java, or Node.js, Python, or Ruby, or some custom application if you want to run, what I going to do? So just I'll select here they have used Node.js. Just I click run. So the output is hello from Lambda. So here I haven't installed anything. I do not have any backend dependencies, nothing. So everything is taken care by the Lambda itself. So that is why we call it as a serverless thing. Okay, so this is all about Lambda. So we can just create a function. So we can create function from scratch, or if you have any Bluetooth, that is a blueprint, you can create it from that. Or if you have a container image, that is your Dockers, you can also create directly pulling. Or if you have the repositories, there also you can create it. And we're going to just name the function we are using. So if you are using the login function, we can just type the login or sign up, or compose when it comes to mail. Or if you are using the payment, you can just mention payment and what technology you have written the code. So we can select if you have written on .NET, if you have written on Java, Python, Ruby, like that. We have these many things. And same here, we will be using the and the permissions if you want. So you can create the roles for the lambda permissions. That is, so based on the role, the access will be restricted. Okay, so on creating the function, so once the function is created, your platform or the infrastructure is ready, but you need to embed the code. So here we have option. So either you can zip it and it should be within 15 MB, I think so. Or if you have more storage, so you can use the storage class, that is S3, and from there you can link your things. That is one click. You can just give a path to your thing. So whatever the path you are seeing here, that is https mybucket.s3 dot Europe North 1 Amazon AWS dot, that is forward slash path to the object dot zip, right? So this is, we can call it as the API gateway. So this is the gateway. So if you want to pass your request to access that source code, means it should travel from here. So it should initially go for my bucket and it is look for Europe North 1. Thereafter it should look for Amazon AWS.com. Thereafter the path to that object, like that it will pass. So just I'm showing you the example. So because I won't be creating any API gateway to show you right now. So that to understand, just look up here how exactly your path will be look after creating the API. And once it is done, you can configure the things. So if you want to increase the response time, you can, and memory can be enhanced and the storage also complete. And if you want to link to some storage classes, definitely you are allowed to link. And if you want to own your own network, you can do it here. And if you want to keep monitoring your services, what exactly is happening in, do you are getting any errors or something, so even that can be monitored here. So on one click, we'll be able to monitor all the things, so without any additional infrastructure or the softwares. So Just now I created, just I'll be deleting since I'm not using. For confirmation purpose, all the time they will be prompt to this. Okay. So next is we just saw that API gateway, right? So here also we have multiple options. So if you want to create your application, if you have developed your application in REST API, so we can use HTTP API and the WebSocket API, REST API for online things. That is, it works with the Lambda AWS services like that. So if you want to deploy it in privately, yeah, so when it comes to privately means, so within the organization, so this whatever the things you want to deploy and link and generate the links or the endpoint to access the resources means, so if I am trying to access, if I am not the employee of XYZ company, I cannot able to access the resources, whatever the resource they want in their system or the servers. So if I am belongs to that company and if I am into that their network means I can able to access, or else I could not able to access. So on build, that is we'll be using the new API. So if you have existing, you can import or create one. So you can just name as you previously given for your lambda one. So if you are using it for the login, just give it as a login and the description you want and create just. So only you have just created the API, that is the path like this. Okay, so you need to create the resource from root where it should go. Like initially, so in my PC folder, so if you want to create method, you can just create. So in my PC folder, so I have that where you have created your thing, that is sorry. So I have created or I have deployed my microservices in the Lambda function, and I'm using the method post. That is, I wanted to sign up to that web application. So like that. So the proxy will be used, and in which region the Lambda function. I need to choose the Lambda function. So whatever the function you have created there, it will be displayed here, and the timeout or the response time will be given here. On creating that, you will be getting. So I cannot able to create since I have delete that is AWS Lambda function. So it's a mandatory field. So I need to choose, or else I won't be allowed to create that method. So on that, so if you we have multiple methods. So based on your criteria, we'll be choosing. So if you are deleting some resources, we'll be creating separate delete method. If you are getting the data or fetching the things, you can get it. And option, patch, post, put, all these things. And we have different things. If you are running your that is source code in lambda function, we'll be linking here. And if you are using through some other points, you'll be getting it. And if you are using in EC2 instance or any other Kubernetes or another, we'll be using the AWS. And if you have already deployed in some other regions, you'll be using the API like that. Okay. So this is about Amazon API gateway and the Amazon VPC. So I just taken the example of if I belong to the organization XYZ, only then I can able to access the resources, whatever the resources one within that the organization network. If I am outside the organization network, I am not allowed to access. So for that purpose only we make use of the virtual private cloud and also the VPN concept also does the same thing. right? Usually we see people using the VPN. So what exactly the VPN will going to do means, so it will translate or it will convert whatever the request that is your system wants. Your system having 192.168.1.1 network means the organization will be have 10.0.2.0 network. So if you want to access that 10 series of network, you are not allowed to access this from 192. So you should be in the network of 10 series only. To switch from 192 to 10 series, we will be using the VPN there. So virtual private network. So it's going to create a virtual private network and it is allow us to log into that network. Thereafter, we can able to access that. If you are without having the VPN, so if you try to access that websites or the resources, you are not allowed, and even it won't display any content there also. For same purpose, we'll be using. So allows you to provision the logically isolated section that the AWS cloud, where you can launch resources in the virtual network. So in virtual cloud, inside that cloud, you can create your EC2 instance, you can create your database, you can create your Lambda, and you can create your APIs, everything, S3s, whatever you want, like that. So network control or your IP addresses range. So you can select your own IP address and you can partition your departments within your cloud, and you can have your own route tables and you can restrict using the firewalls and the communication, everything. So that is what I have mentioned here, firewalls. Use security groups and network access control list. So in that also we can make restriction to the accessing the resources to the employees. So the employee is working on development, right? Is nowhere connected to the deployment. So it doesn't require to have any access to deployment or testing team, right? So I can control the access for them. So you are allowed to only for the development environment. You are not allowed to have access to the testing environment. Like that, we can't connect. Hybrid cloud. Connect your on-premises data center on your VPC for the hybrid architecture. So your cloud will be somewhere else, and you can able to access this right from wherever you want, like that. And another one is Amazon Cloud Watch. So what is cloud? Means virtual thing, right? Watch means to keep monitoring something, we call it as watch, right? What it is. So monitoring and observability service that provides data and actionable insights for AWS hybrid and on-premises application. So what they are exactly telling here is means, so if you are learning the Lambda, you have deployed some web application. So in meanwhile, everything was going well in some case, or in some scenario the sales got went, that is the sales goes live in the production. So there is a huge people who are trying to access your servers and wanted to access the same content. So recently we had the Navratri sale on Flipkart and Amazon, right? So people are rushing to buy the electronic devices whatever they have wishlisted so far to purchase, since the price will be low and they have a very huge offers on cards, everything. So when people are trying to access the same thing, the server might get crashed or the server might get low down. So how will the person who is monitoring the server came to know that the it is happened because of this, or the product itself is shows as unavailable or 404 error, something like that. How will the production team will came to know what exactly the problem is happening? So to keep monitoring your resources, we will be using the CloudWatch. Okay, and even I have mentioned in EC2O, we can scale our resources, right? So for that purpose also we can make use of CloudWatch. So what exactly the CloudWatch will does? So it will display the complete resource utilization of your servers irrespective of your AWS switch. So you just need to connect your each services to your CloudWatch, and you can monitor. So what is the CPU utilization as of now, and if the any encounters any errors are encountered, so what is the error, we can able to see the logs here, complete thing. So we'll gonna see those things. Performance monitor, just I mentioned, right? Track metrics, collects the logs, files, and set alarm. So assume that so immediately the tomorrow the sales will go into live. So today only the 10,000 people are accessing my website, and gradually the CPU utilization between 30% to 60%. So gradually the sales starts at the beginning. So the CPU utilization and the number of traffic that is coming, it raises from 10,000 to 20,000, and the CPU utilization and about to reach the 100%. On that time, we can set the alarm for the certain criteria by setting like if the CPU utilization reaches the 80%, and the request whatever the events coming to that server, if it is reaches the maximum events or the request, automatically scale up the resources. That is, just add the RAM as well as the storage and the networking thing scale up. I just want to mention that. So the alarm will be triggered and it will alert the configure manager or the one who is going to monitor all these things. So it will send a mail alert. So this happened, I am scaling up like this, it will change. So automate the action. So just I mentioned it, right? Auto scale. So automate the response to changes in your AWS environment. And resource optimization. So gain insight into resource usage and application performance. So even I just mentioned better example, right? Thanks. And another one topic is AWS identity and access management. So what exactly it is? So assume that even I just mentioned access control list, right? So in an organization, once we join the some organization, we'll be provided with each system to each one of us, right? In there, we will have very minimal access to the resources. So in some cases, assume that every organization owns the system engineer or the system admin, right? He going to take care of all these chores. So what he going to do means, let us take in the Amazon thing. So he'll going to create some user. For example, if you want to understand what is identity means, so in organization we have 20 people with different names, right? We going to recognize someone by their, so that is we call it as identity. And the access management, so A wants to access only the storage related service. So what the system admin will going to do, he will assign only this storage related service to that A person. Rest services, whatever the Amazon wants, that will be blocked for him, and he cannot able to access or he cannot able to do modifications or anything. So in that also we can restrict the access. So we have just allocated the storage resources for the A person, and he can only able to create, and he is not allowed to delete also, like that. That is access management, a service that enables to manage access to the AWS services and the resources securely. So why it is required? Fine grained control, set permissions for user groups and roles. So I just mentioned, right? So I can control the users for what service or the resources he or she can able to get access, what is not, I can completely control, right? Security best practices. So thus definitely it is going to improve the security one. So when you are not which who is related to some development team or the deployment team, you don't require to have the servers access. So if you have means, definitely you gonna try something, and if something goes happen, something goes wrong means definitely will some going to company will going to lose very huge thing, right? Like that. Compliances helps in maintaining with regulations by controlling the access to sensitive data. Just I mentioned it, right? Will once we have restricted the access means we have set the permission means the data will be under secure one. So another concept or the services in Amazon is S3, that is simple storage service. So even the RDS, DynamoDB, and S3 are all three are we these three services are used to store the data itself. But for frequent For data retrieval, we'll be using for script based means RDS, we'll be using for quick rate is DynamoDB. But here we gonna use unstructured data, that is the files, documents, video, images, like that. On object storage service that offers industry leading scalability and data availability and security and performance. So why do we require to have S3? Why use durability and availability? So since you have a content which is not at all required to have a modification or upgradation, just the documentation, I can say that, or the Wikipedia or the videos, whatever we people going to watch from the YouTubes, right? So once it is uploaded, it's not required to have modification, updation, like that, right? So either we can upload it or delete it. Only two options can be done. So on those cases, we'll be using the service, that is simple storage service. So in YouTube, you have an account, you will upload some videos, and it will be available unless until you delete it by yourself, like that. So designed for 99% durability and the availability, cost effective. Pay only for what you store and transfer. So what they are telling here means, so you have a 1 GB of video file, like for that purpose only. So whatever the amount it going to charge the network or the data transfer for 1 GB and the storage. So how much data you are storing, for that purpose only we will be charging. So if you want the account in a S3 means you won't get any charge. Only if you are doing any transactions for storing your data, only on that particular time you will get charged. And you can integrate your things as we saw in AWS Lambda. So we're gonna integrate our code into the AWS Lambda, right? So integration, seamless integrations with other AWS servers for analytics, machine learning, and more we can do. So here also we have a different storage classes, so based on our requirement. So initially we have a S3 standard use case, frequently access data. So if you are accessing the data, whatever you have stored in the S3 means you will be using the class S3, and the cost obviously will be higher storage cost but low access fees. So you won't be get charged for accessing the data, but whatever the data you are storing there will be of high cost. So if you are not frequently accessing your data means go for S3 intelligent timing, that is unknown or changing access pattern. Okay, next is standard AI. So in AI in this, sorry, IA in the sense infrequent access. So I'm not accessing the data regularly basis. So I will access monthly once or twice or thrice, like that. So infrequently access data but requires rapid access. So whenever you try to access the data, so you will watch today one video, and you wanted to watch that video after a few days or few months. So whenever you hit that pass that link, it should be available to you, right? It should not throw any latencies by buffering, like that. So we have a data which is get accessed oftenly but on the rapid basis. On that case, it will be done, and the cost will be low compared to the standard one. Higher retrieval fees, because whatever the data you're going to store here, storage will be low, but it will have a rapid access, right? For that purpose, the charges will be laid on that service. And if you are using infrequent access data that does not require multiple availabilities, for example, what they are trying to say means, so you have a data in India, that is Asian specific region, and you wanted to access the data in the Europe region. So obviously, if you the latency will be more. If you are requested the same data from Europe region to Asian specific region, it should fetch and it should all travel all the day to reach you out, right? So on that case, what exactly is going to happen? The latency will be low, so it will take quite time to reach the end user or the intended user. So on that time, you don't require. So you wanted to access that data very frequently and rapidly within the region. So in India, the people are used to that resources regularly. In Europe, they are not going to use that resources. On those cases, we can be using one zone IA, that is infrequent accessed data that does not require multiple availability zone, that is secondary backup. Low cost compared to standard IA, but stored in single availability zone. So there won't be any backups available. Next is Glacier. Archive storage for data that can be tolerate retrieval times of minutes to hour. So it's the lowest one. So where you're going to test your patience, I can say that. So sometimes while we are accessing the resource in the Google, so it will prompt us to wait. It keeps loading, right? So for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, it will take and sometimes minutes to return our data back. So on those data are stored here, and the cost will be low. So you won't be accessing anything. Output, that is low latency access and the optimization. So by manipulating all these things in S3, so we can maintain the cost effectively. So how we can achieve those things? So data lifecycle policy. So we see different cycles of data, right? Use policies to transition objects between the classes based on the age or the access pattern. So on doing that, we can have low maintenance cost. Object tagging. Tag object to categorize and manage their life cycles more effectively. So we have certain products or the catalogs and the wish list. Wish list are wishlisted only when sales comes, they wanted to access, or else they won't access, right? So on that time, based on the different classes, we can maintain. Monitoring and analytics. Utilize tools like S3 storage lanes to gain insights into your storage usage and optimize accordingly. So another in is SQS, Simple Queue Service. So what it is? A fully managed messaging queue service that enables decoupling and scaling microservices distributed system and the serverless application. So what it going to do exactly means? So let us understand that simple mechanism or this scenario. You are using some text messenger and want to ping somebody, hey, how are you? So from source side, you will be sending the message, hey, how are you? So in destination also, you should receive the same content. That is, hey, how are you? It should not receive that, how are you, hey, like that in the scramble manner, right? So in what manner you are sent, the same manner should be received in the end. So when there is a multiple requesters are appeared on single seconds, so this what does the simple queue service will going to do means it will maintain the request based on the milliseconds also, and it transmits one after the other. So it maintains the queue and it will transfer the request one after the other to the desired services, and it will throw back in the same manner. For that purpose, we will be using the simple queue services. So why this? Ensure that the messages are delivered reliably between the applications of the services. Automatically scales based on the demand. So when the requesters are more, the instance and the storage obviously will be more to process the request, and support secure encryptions of message in transit at the rest. So while transmitting, since the simple queue services holds and transmits the data, we need to have an encryption, else the data might be breached out, right? For that purpose, we'll be using them. And networking and content delivery, that is cloud font. In Amazon, we'll be using the cloud font. So what exactly the cloud font does? The cloud has different meaning and the font has different meaning, where nowhere they are not connected to each other, right? We'll understand that. So a fast content delivery network. So the cloud font has another name, that is CDN, that is content delivery network service, that is securely delivers the data, video applications and APIs with low latency. As I just mentioned, with different region in Asia, in Asian specific region, people are using Amazon, and the European region also, people wants to use Amazon itself or the Flipkart, right? So both region wants to access the same application, but whatever the Flipkart or the Amazon servers are once in that is Asia's specific, but not in the Europe specific. So whenever the people of Europe's regions wants to access the data in the Asia specific means the latency will be high. So the network has to travel from different routers and wanted to reach the destination, that is where the server is located, and fetch the back. So the latency will be more and delay in accessing the content. So to avoid all those things, so when there is more latency, people won't be using any of the services, right? So what people are expecting, whenever I click something, I should get in response on time. So to achieve that, we'll be using CloudFront. So CloudFront is nothing but the edge server, we can call it as in another name. So what exactly it's going to do is, so Amazon, Azure, GCP wants all edge services in uh, quite minimal distance from the servers, whatever they want. So what they're going to store, they're going to store all the cached items. So for example, in Europe country, somebody has, in region, somebody has accessed the Flipkart application and he has browsed some for products. So whatever the he has browsed, the cache will be stored in that edge location. Again, in Europe country, the some other person wants to access the same application. So on that time, the network or the data packets won't travel from different routers to reach the server directly. So initially, it checks for the local edge servers or the cloud servers to does the requested data is available in the server, means it will get and it will throw back the result to the intended user. If it is not available in that edge servers, it will look for the nearby edge servers, like that. So it will move in the form of, that is a data structure, we have a trees, right? In like that it will move, and it keeps looking for edge servers until it reaches the primary server, like that it will does. So global reach, delivery of content with low latency through the global network of edge locations, like it is cost effective, pay only for the content delivered with no upfront fees. So if the person is going to access the content from that edge location, means they're going to pay only for that purpose. If the cache is being stored, you won't be required to pay anything. Security, so integrated with AWS Shield and AWS Web and the additional protection against denial of service, DDoS. So why do we require DDoS means? So if somebody wants to hack your system or the server, means intently they going to prepare multiple events to be happened on a one click. So the server has capability to handle uh, 10 requests for a minute, means what exactly the hacker or the intruder going to do means, in 1 minute he tried to pass more than 100 requests. So on that time, the server cannot able to handle. So it give up its security criteria, everything, and easily the intruder can able to access to that resources and the data will be used. For that purpose, even the denial of service requires to be integrated not only in the edge servers, in the primary servers too. And what is cloud formation? So cloud formation is something, a service that helps you to model and set up your AWS resources so that you can spend less time in managing those resources and for focusing on application. That is infrastructure as a code type. So define your infrastructure in code, making it easy to deploy and manage. So it does exactly same as Terraform and Ansible. So you want to maintain your, you have, assume that you have 10 web servers are running on your virtual machines, and you wanted to update some or you wanted to scale your existing instance or the system. So instead of going to each system and selecting and adding the storage and scaling up, just by writing the script and running it or passing it through this platform, you can able to upscale your requirement or the infrastructure in one click, so without visiting the each and individual. So that is what they are telling here, define your infrastructure in code and make it easy to deploy and manage. So version control, so how will you know that in this period of time I was using this many resources, and thereafter, like, to even monitor those things, keep track of changes of your infrastructure over a time. So we will be having the log to maintain those things. And automation, so automate resource provisioning and updates, ensuring consistency and reducing error. So when there is, so by setting up the cloud watch and integrating the cloud formation, so once the cpu reaches the 80% of its utilization, automatically the alarm will be triggered and send notification to both the user as well as the cloud formation, saying that requires to scale up the resources by so and so thing. So based on that, the automation will does, and already we have to define the code in the infrastructure. That is, we have a predefined format, right? We should have mentioned there. So how much of resources should be scaled if it reaches to 80% of CPU utilization, which is already been running upfront, right? That is, and the cloud trail. So the service that enables governance, compliance, and operational and risk auditing of your AWS account. So what exactly it is means cloud trail, it going to monitor each and every movement or the every moves of a person who is working in the AWS account. So that is what they are telling here, audit logging. Okay, so capture API calls for your AWS account, providing visibility in your user activity. So complete whatever the activity you are doing. So that all those will get monitored. Compliance helps you to meet compliance requirement by providing the record of all the account activities and secure monitoring of AWS account for unusual activities. So you'll be using some resources frequently, and suddenly someone hacks to your account and they started using the resources which are you haven't used for so many years, but suddenly you will be using, or some miscellaneous activities got detected on those cases. So this will help us to get alert. So these are few things or the few Amazon services we have just understood. So why do we require and what are the benefit of using those things, and what are the advantages of owning the cloud services compared to the physical services. So this is all about. Thank you.